Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the VRG Virtual Racing League at Summit Point tonight for the Jefferson Grand Prix. Apologize for the nearly 48 minutes of dead air there while your broadcaster was figuring out some technical difficulties. This evening, I am joined once again in the booth, but for the first time for me, with Steve. Steve, would you mind introducing yourself? Welcome to the booth, and thanks for joining me here. Yeah, I think it's going to be a good race, and I know watching the practice session earlier this week, it was certainly surprising to see Jim Karamanis put it on top of the grid there, so I think we're in for a good race this evening.
Yeah, it's a tough track. There's only about one good passing opportunity, and the rest of the track's tight and technical and a lot of room for error, so I expect everybody to be on their best behavior, and hopefully we see some good racing.
Yeah, so we're about 48 minutes into this practice session here this evening. We'll pick that up with a 20-minute qualifying session, and then we'll have a 40-minute race session. So I'll get myself squared away here in the broadcast booth, and we'll bounce around the grid here just a little bit, see how everybody's doing. Got to find my feed. I spent last week actually doing some racing, which was new for me, and it's amazing just how difficult that may be for our competitors here. So I got to hand it to them.
A little bit of perspective.
Yeah, it certainly was a lot of perspective. You know, I've been toiling away in my own practice sessions, but then to get out on track and have some people to run with made it a horse of a different color for sure.
I guess it's like anything. You watch it on TV and it looks easy.
Yeah, exactly. So we're pulling up our track map here so we can see where everybody's at. Got a few new camera shots to pull into the broadcast here this evening, so we're going to take a look, see how those go. Lots of cars running out of the pit right now. Looks like Dave Fitzgerald's running down the front straight, headed into turn one here. A couple of outstanding liveries. Let's see what we got.
Good mix of brands as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. We do have a nice mix up here. I think with the updates, people are looking to try out some new hardware. We got some more Audis than I've typically seen, several Ferraris, a lot of Mercedes, and actually I would say there's probably been a decrease in the BMWs, which is a bit interesting.
Yeah, I think the BMW would be the one that got a little bit of an edge this week. Not going to take a 12th place car and make it a leader, but it'll definitely give you a few tenths in the battle you were having.
I spent some time practicing in the McLaren. That one's a bit on knife's edge. Probably not the best car to start as a beginner. So, you know, I guess as Jim climbs into the booth and I climb out, I'll get to try a bit more. Do you race often yourself there, Steve?
I do. I race in an MX5 league. That's with Dave Fitzgerald. He runs that one. That's how I got introduced to you guys. But I spend most of my time in the MX-5s, and lately I've been trying some oval stuff, which is a whole nother world to me. Watched a lot of NASCAR, you know, growing up in the United States, but I've never tried it, so it's kind of neat to do some dirt stuff and do some paved oval is what I've been doing lately. But it's just, you know, that stuff I do just for fun. I focus on the road.
Yeah, I do want to try and branch out a little bit. I think rallycross seems like an interesting thing to experiment with a little bit, but obviously here at Summit Point, a track that I enjoy very much but don't know very well, I can get a bit more practice in the off season when we're not there. So this iRacing and sim racing is a great learning tool when we can't be at the track for sure.
So I've never been to Summit Point in reality, but I've done lots of laps of it in the sim, and I feel like if I went there, I'd be ready.
You know, I think I've definitely found a few spots where I could, you know, pick up some time. So when I head back, I guess the big difference being that when I go back, I'll be there in a 1961 Austin Mini. I will not be there in a 2020 BMW Z4 GT3. So I'll have to, you know, modify my braking points accordingly.
Yeah, it's gonna help you though. I mean, I know, like for example, going to turn one, there's a little bit of a bump on the inside. And I imagine in real life it's going to be there, and you're going to say, I know that bump is there. I've hit that millions of times in the sim.
Exactly. There's a bit of a kerfluffle down there coming out of 1.
This is going to be tough going into turn 3, too wide here. Bit of give and take. It's the only way it'll work.
There's young Ian Ditson here, who was quickest in the practice session, and then shortly after leaving, Jim Karamanis pipped him by about half a second. So we'll see if Ian found some time or if Jim is just extra quick this week. So
yeah, it's going to be a tough track to push 100% for the whole 40 minutes. I think you'll see guys kind of settle into a rhythm where they can consistently make good laps.
Darren Treacle's out there, not too far off the pace as we're looking at our timing tower here. Darren handily winning the first season here with the Virtual Racing League. Has not had nearly as much success here early in the second season. Rumors have it that the paddock may be stowing additional ballast in the trunk of his car. Yet to be seen. Perhaps Park Ferme will have something to say about that after the race.
Yeah, I don't think they have the rules for that yet. We've talked about it in other series.
See, actually, Darren's out this evening in the BMW, which is, I think, the last couple of races he's been in the McLaren, which he was stating himself was a bit of a handicap, and that winning a race in McLaren would certainly be a challenge. But he's gone back to what's proven to be a pretty reliable workhorse here in the VRL.
So I've driven most of these cars, and I've never driven the BMW, but from what I can tell by looking at it, it's a little bit smaller than the rest of the cars. It may actually give you a bit of an advantage, maybe going through the carousel and the S's, just giving yourself a little bit more room to work with.
Yeah, it does seem to handle a little bit nicer like that. The Mercedes-Benz being a bit more of a tank. And then I haven't yet had the opportunity to drive the Audi, but I understand that's another one that can be a bit of a handful with it. Its weight distribution. It can come around pretty quickly if you're not careful about how you're handling your weight transfers.
Yeah, I think so. The Ferrari is kind of wide and it likes to go fast. Not sure that would be able to show its muscle here. The Mercedes is really good on bumps and over curbs. I don't really think you're going to be. I mean, you're going to use the curb here, but you're not going to be aggressively pounding curbs here. So I don't know if the Mercedes, would be the car I would choose. I think. Like I said, the Audi is kind of a knife-edge car where 40 minutes, you might make a mistake. Depends how comfortable you are with it. But I think I would lean towards the BMW if I had to choose a car just for this circuit.
We're following along right now with Jeff Taplesai, who's new to the VRL this evening, his first race with us. Jeff in the real world, typically racing a lovely Lotus 7. Very quick in that car. So happy to have Mr. Taplesai with us this evening. Good to see him out here having some fun with us, and we hope he comes back for the rest of this season. Jeff being local to myself and having worked on his car and his sons as they go racing together. Really good to see the family aspect here in both real world racing and him joining us now with the virtual racing series.
So I grew up racing with my family, so that's the only way I know how. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, Dad was taking us to Mid-Ohio when, I think 86 was my first race in Mid-Ohio, and we went every summer until CART gave it up and eventually said we were going to get into racing. We came at it from the vintage side, have never done SCCA or any other club racing, so we've always been vintage racing, but very much a family affair. My dad drives, my wife drives, my best friend is crew chief, so I'm right there with you, and it's definitely a family thing, and it's a great place to be, and it keeps you out of trouble. I know it kept me out of trouble.
That's awesome. So do you guys have a scheduled reopening date for the Real World Series?
Well, we're actually, and during the technical issues, we did have Edwin Perdue from Summit Point in the booth with us. Unfortunately, we are scheduled to go back to Summit Point for the annual running of the Jefferson. VRG buddies would be upset if they knew that I didn't know this off the top of my head. Anyways, August 6th through the 9th, we will be back at Summit Point for the Jefferson 500. And I know we're all very much looking forward to that.
It'll be here before we know it.
It will. Tommy Kendall was supposed to be the guest of honor. I believe Tommy will not be attending this year. While we all would love to see Tommy in person, the last time we tried to have Tommy be the master of ceremonies, we got biblical proportions of rain and had to cancel due to rain. So maybe we'll just have Tommy Kendall call in and leave everybody a nice voicemail.
Keep his bad juju away.
Right. Great guy, but we seem to have a rotten string of luck with him here currently, so.
Love the sound of those cars.
Yeah, well, and I understand one of the big updates to iRacing is a new audio engine, which is supposed to be, or will allow for newer engine sounds, some more ambient sounds, and the ability to, really kind of bring more of that audible feedback into things. We're coming up here at the end of this hour-long practice session. We'll follow that with a 20-minute quali and a 40-minute race session. So we'll catch a couple of remaining laps here. It's a great time for me to learn all the new camera angles I have. We have a nice start-finish line here. That should be good for the start of the race. So for those watching at home, we thank you for joining us on YouTube or Facebook, however you found us. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the VRG's YouTube channel, please do so. I think we're around 130, 140 likes so far. The more we can get, the better, certainly. One thing you'll probably notice is watching tonight's coverage, you might be able to hear a bit of the radio chatter in the background. Joining the session, I had to come in as a spotter for one of our drivers, and I can't entirely squelch the radio chatter, so if you hear voices in the background, you're not crazy. That's just our drivers talking throughout the course of the race.
I think we may be okay, because I haven't noticed any yet.
Very good. Okay, and that is a checker on our practice session. We should see the grid start to roll out here. To begin this qualifying session, we'll bring up our graphics for qualifying here in just a moment.
Long front straightaway, if you time it right, you maybe you'll get a bit of a draft and get yourself a few extra tenths.
Let's watch them all run through turn 3 here as the field comes through. Stefan Vappa, Ian Ditson. Not sure who's out in the leopard print. Clark Orstrom, I think that's Darren Treacle. There goes either Jim Karamanis or Ralph Padgington in one of the ELB Ferraris.
I would guess a lot of these guys are going to take it easy the first lap or two, get some heat in the tires before they really give it a good push.
Yeah, that first lap out on cold tires is pretty frightening. It's but they come on like magic as soon as you get basically to the end of that first lap. Well, they're noticeably improved. I wouldn't say that they're absolutely on point, but yeah. Maybe we'll jump in the car here with Stefan Vappa and watch him take most of the lap here around Summit Point. Stefan out this evening in the Vappa Vintage Motorsports Magazine liveried Ferrari. Typically quick, very precise driver Stefan is, usually dicing it up with the top 5 in every race.
there's a lot of opportunities to earn yourself off track here, get your lapping done.
Yeah, for sure. Last minute editing here on the graphics while we're live. No better time to do things than when you're doing it live. Oh, lost a bit of our feed there. Wonder what happened. I've got connection. Seems to be an evening ripe with technical difficulties here, Steve.
Yeah, I guess having a little bit of show is better than no show.
Yeah. Let's see if that comes back up.
You killed it on my end.
Sorry about that, sir. It went out on mine too, so you're okay. Certainly not you're not alone in that. We are live on the stream, so I'll just let everybody know out there. Bit of a technical glitch on our side. As soon as we can get the iRacing feedback up, we will. Hopefully that doesn't mean I've got to restart everything again. Not looking good on my side, Steve.
Uh-oh.
Bumpy roads this evening. I don't have any feedback from iRacing. All right, folks. Well, we've got a bit of dead air. This happened the last time. It took us a bit of time to get back into here. Let's try and dump out of here and get back into iRacing and see what we can do. How about you, Steve? You got any real-world racing coming up on your calendar?
I do not. I have real-world 3 kids who took away my real-world racing. Yeah, I haven't been to the track in a few years now, and I still have my car. I'm really hoping. I have my oldest is a 7-year-old girl. I'm really hoping to get her into karting. The plan was to take her, in the spring when tracks open, but COVID had other plans.
Well, it's excellent to hear that you want to get her into it. We have my wife and I have a nephew. He's coming up on about the age where we're going to stick him into a kart, I hope, and certainly try and get him racing right. He's got some latent ability. He could be a Formula One in the near future.
I was going to say, she's been watching a lot of Supercross, and she tells me she wants to fly. And I was like, yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Tough call there as a dad.
Exactly.
Yeah, you want to support your child's dreams, but well, let's hope that things get cleared up here in the world and we can you can get out to the kart track, because I think that'd be a real treat.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm bringing around. Oh, did you do kart racing growing up?
I did. I had several years. Myself, my brothers, and my dad. We did a lot of racing, and some of the fondest memories I have growing up were at the track.
That's excellent. We didn't have a kart track. Moved around a little bit when I was young, so we were down in North Carolina when I was a young buck. But Dad was still taking me to NASCAR. Went to see North Wilkesboro and some of those classic NASCAR tracks. But didn't get into a car until I was 10 years ago, 11 years ago, 2000. Yeah, so I was the ripe age before I got into a real car on track.
I don't know. I think there's no age that's too late.
Right? I mean, looking at our vintage racer group, we got guys in their 70s and 80s. They're still out there doing it as long as they can. So it's a good time. All right. As everybody can see here, we're about 90. Get in there, pick up this qualifying session, and resume from there. So, all righty. Let's see, back to normal. And we are back. Momentary glitch. We got that one sorted. We make a good team here, Steve. I appreciate you sitting here with me.
Now we've got a few minutes till the race starts. I hope we get everything straightened out and we can have a good race.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let me bring the stream back up so Steve can see what's going on. Alrighty.
Back in.
Alright, so after that brief interruption, looks like Darren Trickle's out on top of the minute 8:77. Stefan just behind. Ian Ditson currently qualifying in third place. Spencer Patterson, who we missed, I think, the last couple of races, is back with us in quick. And Jim Karamanis round out that top 5. So it looks like Jim's got pace. He's going to have to find some time if he's going to pip it for the pole position this evening.
Yeah, surprisingly close to the front this week. Might have something to do with the shorter laps, but it'll be a good race.
Pull up our driver details here so we can see who we're watching. Ralph Padgington, the other half of Jim Karamanis' ELB, or Extremely Low Budget Racing Team, out there in 2 Ferraris, so budget must be doing reasonably well.
Yeah, those don't come cheap.
They don't.
That's the beauty of sim racing.
Exactly. Towing to the track's a whole lot cheaper. Wrecking the car is a whole lot cheaper.
Yeah, tires, gas, all of it.
Mm-hmm. We have John Wood here. John Wood out of our garage and a member of the DIPA Sport endurance racing partner to B&W Autosport. John Wood, typically out there in a BMW, lately has been out in the Audi, so I think he's stretching his boundaries a little bit and trying to improve his skills.
Yeah, I don't think there's any car that has a distinct advantage, but they all definitely have distinct feels. So you need to try. I feel you need to try them all and see what suits your driving style the best.
I mean, it's certainly interesting to take your real world driving. Get into the sim, same time learning, the pedals, the steering wheels, they have totally different feedback from what you're used to, the lack of any kind of motion, so you're really dependent on, what you're hearing in your ears and, what kind of feedback you're getting through your wheels. So as we've watched our field progress over the seasons, picking up those new skill sets, it's been interesting to see everybody's gotten a whole lot quicker, a whole lot more reliable.
Yeah, I struggled quite a bit when I made the switch. When I first jumped into sim racing, it was like you have all these tools at your disposal in the real world. It's just your body, what it tells you, and you're feeling, the things you feel in your butt, and they're all gone. What you have is your eyes, and a little bit you feel through the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when you're driving in real, your eyes are only doing so much. Most of it's just what you're feeling, and you have none of that in the sim. But you have a bunch of drivers here with lots of experience, and they know where they need to get. It's just using their new tools to get there.
And the Virtual Racing League, we've got a rather busy and extremely helpful mailing list. We got a Discord server, and everybody's sitting in there talking with each other, explaining how this all works and how to go quicker. So it's been a really nice community that's rather quickly sprung up here, obviously, in the light of the world situation. Everybody's come together and having a blast.
Yeah, I think it's awesome to keep everybody together. I mean, you've missed out several months of racing by now, and get-togethers and things like that. Just to have guys, on track together, maybe sitting in their basements or wherever they're doing it. But it's awesome just that they can still have that connection. Yeah,
the post-race pub here in our Discord server, everybody sits around, has a beer, bends an elbow just like we do at the track. A bit of that camaraderie that we're missing a little bit in the real world. So it's not a 100% substitute, but it's pretty good considering.
Yeah. Hopefully not too many drinks before.
Oh, no. So we're about coming up on 13 minutes through what should be a 20-minute qualifying session, and then we'll have our 40-minute race here for the Jefferson Grand Prix at Summit Point Motorsports Park. It's in beautiful Summit Point, West Virginia. It's the one race, certainly the real-world corollary to this being the Jefferson 500, typically scheduled every May. This year is pushed to August 6th through the 9th. A race that all of us VRG and other vintage racers look forward to. Generally see upwards of 200 or more cars. Some very fancy stuff. And generally just a great time to go to the track and have a good time with all your buddies. So certainly looking forward to this August when we can go there in the real world, and we get to meet Mr. Edwin Pardue, who was here earlier during our technical difficulties, and I believe will join us next race, so we can have a bit of a chat with Edwin, see how things are going at Summit Point in the real world.
Vintage racing, is that a mixed course race, or are there different classes on the track at the same time, or how does that work?
So we typically break up our groups by engine displacement. So there's usually our small bore is under 1.5 liters. Then we've got medium bore, which is up to 2 liters, and then we have a big bore group, which is generally everything like 2 liters and up, or some of the really quick stuff, your ground pounders and V8 stuff. And then we'll have there's a dedicated Formula Ford group. The out for that generally see 30 or 35 Formula Fords, all of vintage marks. So based on typically displacement, and then a couple of groups for the wings and things, as you would expect. So it makes for some pretty interesting events, given all the various cars that come out, and the really interesting stuff are the things that was coming out of England in the 60s, where you took whatever BMC or British Leyland had on the shelf and you built a car around it, and you made it out of fiberglass and baling twine, and you went racing.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think you said there were 200 plus cars. I mean, there's probably some very unique vehicles in that group.
Certainly there are. Occasionally we get some Lola T70 Can-Am type stuff, and some other, the sports racer stuff is really interesting to see. And then there's a couple of really nicely turned out V8 big bore Camaros, some V8 MGBs, really a nice selection of cars. Are they
like actual cars that were raced back in the day, or are these replicas, like you should call them?
No, our club tries to stick pretty closely to cars which would have been campaigned back in the day, or were built to a spec back in the day. The kind of tribute, or the super performance that you can buy of a GT40 these days, they aren't necessarily common at our events. We'll allow them if they show up, but generally we want to see cars that raced back in the day in the real world. So some have provenance, some were regional SCCA cars. Others, we have a couple of SCCA national winners who, old H and G Prod guys that bring out their H and G Prod cars that they won SCCA national championships with back in the 60s. So. And
I was gonna say, what dictates a vintage car? Is there a year cutoff, or what's the range of vehicle that you guys have a year?
Traditionally, it was up to 1972. More recently, we have expanded our eligibility, hold on to your seat here, all the way up to 1990. But that is some, footnotes to that one. Obviously, 1990 introduces the Miata, but the only Miata that we allow at this time is the 1.6, so the NA Miata. And then there wasn't a whole lot of exciting things going on in the 80s in sports cars, at least not in the United States, but at least allows for the Golf, the VW Golfs and GTIs, and the BMW E30s to come out and play. So, the intent.
1990 is still 30 years ago. It's not; those aren't new cars,
Yeah, technically vintage by or at least not new. The hope that we can open up some cars that are, I'm not sure how old you are, Steve. I'm 39 myself, but those
just turned 40.
All right, so those hot hatches that we probably all wanted when we were in high school, the GTI, for example, those are accessible. They're a $5,000 race car in some cases, and now you can bring that to the track, get some racing in, and then, you know, maybe learn to love something that was built in the 60s. While you save up the money to afford, not necessarily buying, but perhaps maintaining that race car from the 60s, because, you know, it gets a bit more costly when you're talking about parts that are quite a bit older.
So my most recent race car is a 1970 Camaro, and I raced in a class where I use stock castings and things and the like, so I know all about that.
Well, there you go. There's a gentleman here from the Pittsburgh area where I'm from, Sam Viviano, runs a beautiful Camaro. I'm going to guess his motor's not stock, because that thing sounds like a dream running down the front straight. At RPMs, I don't know that, you know, Chevy's probably extremely proud that it's turning those kinds of RPMs.
Yeah, so anyway, I race in a restricted class where we have to use a lot of old parts, but even my old Chevy 350, I mean, it'll go well over 8,000 RPM.
Well, you're more than welcome to come out and join us once you can head out to the track. We'd certainly be happy to have you.
Yeah, I'd like to come check one out.
Yeah, come and hang out and enjoy the races. So we're about 19 minutes here, so we should only have about a minute left here in this qualifying session. Darren Treacle's currently out on top and just went purple. So I think Darren might have pole position here in the bag, unless Stefan or Ian can pull a magic trick out of their hats. Mr. Caramana seems to have fallen down the ladder a little bit. Let me pull up their best times and see what we're looking at here. Yep. So Ian's going to take one last crack at it, see if he can find some pace. Stefan's in the pits. So we may be looking at our starting grid here.
Trickle really pulled that a lap there. Really good gap between him and everyone else.
He's good at that. He likes to camp there, you know, around 8th, 9th position in qualifying, and then, you know, probably gets the fuel just right, and then goes out there and sets a ringer.
I mean, it looks like there's a couple good groupings of times on the board where I think the racing will be really good throughout the field.
Yeah, everybody's been able to find a bit of a group to race with, and everybody's extremely courteous out on track as they're working their way up through the field. So it's we've kind of organically grown into a pretty decent racing group here. So, to your point, Steve, I do think we are going to have some pretty good racing here. Let's see what Ian does as he comes through. Nope, a bit off pace there. So everybody's going to head back to the paddock here. We'll pull up a little something to look at while we're waiting for everybody to roll out. Once we get the officials from timing and scoring, we'll pull up our grid and run through that. Checkered flag is out.
Fitzgerald threw up a lap there at the very end.
Oh, that he did.
Snuck right in there, front row.
And I understand Dave, I think it was just this past weekend with a couple of his buddies, did a 12-hour at Silverstone. I think he had 2 drivers on the East Coast, 2 drivers out on the West Coast, and then 2 drivers in Australia split up that 12 hours. And they tackled a decent 12-hour race there. That would be a challenge, I think.
So I've done a few endurance races, and you know, you typically you just kind of meet people who are in your time zone because you all kind of race at the same time and everything. But when you do an endurance race, you want to spread it out because you have to fill up all this time gap, and you don't want people racing 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, and maybe they're not thinking so great. So having people all around the world really rounds out your team nicely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. He said it was a really great thing having some folks on the other side of the pond to help him out there. Let's see. Another technical difficulty here as we get ready to put our grid out on track. Let's see if we can speed this up a bit. Apologies for all the interruptions here, folks. It's okay. Okay, now we've got our grid up. We've got our cars out on track. Looks like we think we're still in replay mode, but we're not. And if you can hear my co-broadcaster there in the back room, that's my dog Arthur. He's a very chatty fellow. Okay.
Yes, I can hear him. He's not too loud.
Oh, thank goodness. All right, so we've got our grid up here. We've got Darren Treacle qualifying on pole position here. Dave Fitzgerald with a quick lap there at the end in second place. Stefan Vappa in third. Ian Ditson, P4. And Reed Shannabrook, new to the VRL, picking up fifth place there. Clark Orstrom in sixth. Spencer Patterson in seventh. We've got Jim Karamanis in eighth place. Bob Lang in ninth. Ralph Padgington in 10th. John Wood in 11th. Christian Bergen in 12th place. Michael Buttrick, 13th, Steve Tenney in 14th, visiting us from BMW National Capital Chapter. Scott Nelshep in 15th, Mac McCormick, 16th, Kurt Oozbay, 17th, Mike Lawton in P18, Ralph Solomon P19, Paul Bova 20th, Niall McCabe 21st, Eric Russell 22nd, Jeff Taplesine 23rd. We've got a bit of a jerky connection here to iRacing. We'll see if we can't somehow speed that up. Oh, I think I have an idea what's going on. Let's see if that changed again. It did. Okay. There we go. We're going to turn down the audio here on this.
Slow car ahead.
And we got to turn off the spotter. Okay. Whew. Thinking quick on my feet here, Steve.
No, you're doing great.
Do you still have the coverage? Yes, you do.
Yes.
All right. Again, this is Ian Wisman with you here with the VRG Virtual Racing League, joined in the booth this evening by Steve Ficacci, bringing you the Jefferson Grand Prix from Summit Point Motorsports Park. Thank you for joining us out there on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're watching from. This evening brought to you by Vintage Motorsport Magazine and Shea Summit's 100-mile-per-hour Chili. We're watching our grid come down on their pace lap, getting ready to roll off here. We have Darren Treacle out on pole position. Dave Fitzgerald is outside, looking for an exciting race here in this second season of the Virtual Racing League with the VRG. Steve, looking forward to some good racing. Let's pull up a good camera position here. Catch this green flag.
Looks like we're off.
Wait for the lights to light. Green flag. Go, go, go. Darren taking the lead. Dave Fitzgerald close behind Stefan Vappa on the inside there. Let's see if he can get Dave Fitzgerald as they go into turn one here. Dave, a little bit of a tussle there into one. Stefan slotting into third place. Ian Ditson fourth. I believe that is Reed Shannabrook there in fifth place. Clean through one. Looks like the rest of the field managing to make it through pretty cleanly as well.
Yeah, they're going to need to get single file before turn three there.
Down in the carousel here. Clean in through five.
They're going to want to start getting racy, but they got to be careful that the tires aren't up to temperature yet. They can make a mistake.
Yeah, that's for sure. So far, it looks like the grid has made it mostly cleanly through. Looking back through my instant replays, I don't see any major shunts in that first lap, so that's pretty exciting. Good stuff. We'll watch Darren here come through turn 10 onto this long front straightaway at Summit Point Motorsports Park. Handily in the lead at the moment, though I think Dave Fitzgerald's going to have something to say about that in just a little bit. timing tower now that we've got a full lap completed, as well as our track map, so we can see where everybody's at.
Yeah, it's a short lap here. I think we may have to deal with some lap traffic later in the race, more than we had to deal with last week.
That certainly will make it exciting. Jump a little further down in the pack and see how everybody's doing back here. There's young Michael Buttrick. I know Michael to be out there racing in a VR headset, which I think probably drastically improves his ability to, just have that spatial awareness out on track. I believe Christian Bergen's ahead there in the Cheetos-sponsored BMW. That's a new livery for me. Currently showing in the timing and scoring, Darren Treacle out on top. Spencer Patterson looks to be in the pit lane. Dave Fitzgerald just behind, but Darren is certainly putting some distance between him and second place. To be expected from Mr. Treacle. While we're at it, we'll jump up to the Treacle Insurance blimp here. Providing home, auto, race car, and tow rig insurance services.
Yeah, this turn 3 is quite a bit of... Oh, you got a spinner.
Yeah, you can see there. I think that was Reed Shanabrook just behind Ian Ditson. Did have a bit of a spin. Jumped down and
collected him. That's a hell of a spot to park.
Whoa. Looks like generally some connectivity issues there. Some crazy stuff going on there with Stefan. I'm going to guess he's not really all over the track like that.
Yeah, it's very hard to follow a car like that.
Extremely.
Yeah, I mean, if they get a incident here, it's what's referred to as netcode, and it really damage a car heavily, more severe than just a minor bump with the car. The sim is predicting where that car may or may not be because of the connection, and it can cause extra damage that's just during your race.
I think Ian's probably trying to get away from him, and it looks like Stefan may have succumbed to his internet connectivity.
Yeah, it's a shame.
See how Mr. Karamanis is doing here. Up 2 spots from the start of the race here, so Jim's making his way back up through the pack. Unable to replicate those times he saw in practice.
Well, in practice he can always reset to the pit to start over. During the race he's got to string together 40 minutes worth of good laps. Survival is more important at the moment.
I think, Steve, that was one of the hardest things that I had to deal with was stringing more than 2 laps together at a time. I could go out there and put a heck of a quali lap together, but could I do it again? No. I'm better now, but it took some time.
Yeah, I also think people struggle looking at the practice timesheet and just trying to improve, move yourself up the ladder, but I think you may be doing yourself a disservice by not practicing the consistency, which is needed to finish a race and finish a race well.
We'll jump back here to Mr. Tapleside. Jeff in his first race with the VRG Virtual Racing League out here this evening in his Mercedes-Benz. So a rookie with us at the VRL. Not necessarily a rookie in the real world, but it's great to see him out here with us this evening, and I hope that he's back every week, every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. as we take this traveling circus to various tracks across North America.
Are you guys following any particular schedule? Are you following your real-world schedule? Or
well, in a way, we're sort of replicating our real-world schedule in that the Jefferson Grand Prix for the Jefferson 500. Next week, we're going to head to New Jersey Motorsports Park for the Airfield Classic. We historically have had a race at NJMP. Not on our real-world calendar this year, but this at least gives us a chance to go and race it when we're not running it in the real world. And we'll also head to Watkins Glen a little later in this season to parallel our typical October event at Watkins Glen in the real world on the old Formula One race weekend. So yeah, we try to follow our real world schedule, and then we throw in a couple of tracks that we don't typically travel to, and then we'll pick a track like say Daytona and have a bit of a weird night race or something different for just about everybody to mix it up a bit.
Yeah, I think you're fortunate, iRacing being located up in the Northeast here. They scanned a lot of the tracks that you guys probably run on.
They have. I'm going to try and bribe them to come and scan Pit Race, which is a fantastic track if you've not yet been or seen it. Yeah, very lucky in that they have, and certainly the iRacing track scans are outstanding. Having raced in a couple of other sims, it's the attention to detail is fantastic.
I'm impressed with how Dave's been able to hang on to Treacle. Treacle seemed to jump out immediately when the green flag dropped, and looked to be putting a gap on everyone. But Fitzgerald sure hanging in.
Yeah, Dave certainly got pace, and these two do go back and forth. And I think there's a bit of gentlemanly stuff, so they can make sure to have a bit of a race. Certainly, you get a race win when you run away with it, but it's not necessarily as much fun when you're out all by yourself. So. But I can see Dave taking it to Darren here, probably just biding his time, waiting for Darren to make a mistake. Jump back down here to Stefan. Seems like he's back online and connected, fighting his way back up through the field. Currently riding in 9th position, down 6 spots from qualifying, but I expect Stefan to make that up rather quickly.
Yeah, his connection looks like it's much improved. You know, and as distracting as it is for the other drivers to see him disappearing, typically when, he's having the issue, he's seeing everyone else disappear. So instead of one car disappearing, he's seeing the whole field.
And I typically would be looking forward to seeing Stefan in person here in Pittsburgh for the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix as Stefan and his father George come out and run at Shenley Park here in the city of Pittsburgh. Stefan at that race runs I believe it's a Saab Quantum 2-stroke. Pretty interesting to watch him race that car, shifting on the column.
Wow.
And just like any good 2-stroke, you want to keep it on the boil. So it's pretty interesting to watch both his handwork and his footwork as he's navigating the, is it 2.3 miles of Shenley Park, the 19 or so turns that they've got there, and all the hay bales and telephone poles and stuff. So Stefan's certainly an artist when it comes to racecraft.
Yeah, I bet you that 2-stroke sounds quite unique.
Being next to him in the paddock when he's warming it up, not so great. Benefit to that. So he fogs the place, and the mosquitoes get out of there, and then you don't have to worry about bug bites. Jump up here to Reed Shannonbrook, who's making some time here on Clark Orstrom. Fix up my graphics here again real quick.
We talked a little bit earlier about the parity between the cars, and I think the Mercedes is the only car that was not touched. All the other ones got a little bit of a horsepower advantage, or some cars had drag taken away, but I believe the Mercedes was the one that was, used as the benchmark.
I see. Yeah, I know the last update, which would have been, towards the end of May, the tire models changed rather drastically, which I think caught a number of folks off. Worsened to some degree.
I think the biggest problem is, at the end of the day, they are all going to be similar, but for like the guys racing tonight, that update was this morning. So here they were practicing all week, probably since last Tuesday, and all their practice. I don't want to say their practice was a waste, but things definitely changed. Your braking points are going to be different. Just the speed that you expect, may or may not be there. If they took horsepower away or something like that, so things are definitely going to be changed.
keep my driving rig at another house, so I don't have the opportunity to sit down in front of it all the time. So probably to my detriment, but also probably a good thing. So it's not the only thing I'm doing. But for example, here, young Ian Ditson, I understand, spends quite a bit of time in the sim. Ian himself, 18 years of age, and working up to becoming a proper race driver in the real world. So I think Ian's definitely taking advantage of the benefits of sim racing, and he's certainly quick in the sim. So that's doing him good for sure.
Yeah, I think it's like being a tool. You use it as much or as little as you can. I don't think it'll hurt you in any way in the real world, but if you have the time to devote to it, it's definitely going to help.
Stefan and John Wood having a drag race here down into one. Looks like John backed out of that one. Gentlemanly virtual point by there.
Yeah, I think he knew that he didn't have the pace to keep behind too long. I mean, he may even learn something following a little bit, the faster car.
Yeah, that's one of those skills that I learned in back in the days of Gran Turismo on my PS2. I was always better when I had a ghost car to chase. So certainly take advantage of that here in iRacing when I'm lucky enough to pull in behind one of the quick guys. Unfortunately, I can't see their steering or their brake or throttle input, so I have no idea what kind of footwork they're doing. Usually doesn't bode well for me, but at least I get an idea of what might be possible.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing is not that the cars are they have changing setups, but the cars are essentially spec. So if you're driving a Ferrari and you're someone else is driving a Ferrari, at least the car are equal before the setup. And I mean, in the real world, that's not always the case. And you could have old tires and old engine or who knows what, but at least the starting point's the same. So if other guys can do it sooner or later and with the right amount of practice, you should be able to do it too.
I know running in the practice session last week, Jim Karamanis was giving me a few pointers of asking me why I was braking, where I was braking, and it's because in the real world I typically do take a touch just to set the car up, and that's because I'm in a car that was built in 1961 or 1976 in the case of the BMW. So then once you learn that you can push the boundaries, it's virtual, you're not going to hurt anything, and you get a little bit braver, and then actually see how a car which can handles. So.
Yeah, like I watch a lot of Le Mans racing, and you always see the driver maybe give the brake a little pump before they get close to the end of the straightaway, and you'll never do that in a sim. You just don't need to. Plus your life's not on the line,
Right. That'd be interesting if iRacing ever added that in. Perhaps it's something you could turn on as like occasional random mechanical failures.
Yeah.
Of course,
yeah,
I guess
if they want to be an accurate sim, it seems to be necessary at some point.
Jump back up here to the top of the pack, and then we'll run back down and come up through the grid so we can give everybody some camera time here. Darren out with a 2.5 second lead over second place Dave Fitzgerald. Still very much in his rearview mirror, so. But Darren now coming onto some traffic and going to hit a little bit more here, not too distant future, so.
It could fall into Fitzgerald's hands. I mean, sometimes the lap traffic doesn't quite know that the leaders are there, and then when they do, now that they're aware of it, they'll get out of the following car, the second place car, a little bit easier.
Jump back here and work our way up through the pack, starting with Bob Lang. Apologies if the camera jumps around rather drastically here. We're going to work our way up through the timing tower. Kurt Uzbey here, you can see down in the corner of the screen there, his real world race car is a Chevron. Beautiful looking car. Not far off from the Ferrari he's driving this evening.
Yeah, I think we're only separated by 50 years.
Niall McCabe out in the 909 Audi. Austin Healy Sprite that he races with us. But Niall's having a good time with all this. Solomon out in his beloved Ferrari. You can see there down in the lower right-hand or left-hand corner, Ralph's Real World Racer, a hell of a Formula Junior. Beautiful, quick-looking car. Whoop! We had a bit of an incident there rejoining the track.
Ooh.
Sometimes that happens. Yeah, I guess it should be said that have triples set up. Well, I believe Darren and perhaps Dave Fitzgerald do. But the that spatial awareness is difficult when all you've got is a single monitor and can't really look left or right.
Yeah, depending on what wheel you're using, you can set some buttons so you can look left and right. It can be distracting, you know, because your whole screen turns and you don't see where you're going. You mentioned one of the guys was on VR earlier. That seems to be the best way to do it. If you can do it that way, triples are another good option. But yeah, single could be a bit of a handicap. Maybe not so much for going fast, but definitely in the awareness and you know might hurt your racecraft.
I certainly could have used it at Mid-Ohio when I was running there last week. I had a bit of a shunt in Thunder Valley and was trying to rejoin. Thought I was clear, wasn't paying attention to my relative times, and pulled out in front of the race leader. Luckily, it was a glancing blow, and he was able to proceed without incident, but, you know, I hung my head in shame virtually.
Yeah, that's something you have to get used to, is looking at the relative. I think you said you do a lot of test sessions, not so much of the racing, but it's something you have to pay attention to.
And I've recently got my father into the sim, so we're going to spend some time with him, getting him race ready, and hopefully he'll join us sometime this season. I think he's aiming for Watkins Glen, which is a little bit later in our virtual season, but hey, if he gets out there, he had a hell of a time, 4 hours in testing the other day, and had a blast, and was just as sweaty getting off the sim as he was in the real world. So
that's great.
Jump up here to Ian Ditson, who looks to be closing pretty quickly on Clark Orstrom. This is a battle for third place.
Yeah, then they have lap traffic. This could happen at the end of the straightaway here.
Seems the BMW's got the legs on the Audi just a little bit.
Well, I think the BMW was one of the cars that had the drag lessened for this latest update. It's going to be a minor bit. It's not going to give it a huge advantage. Probably had a bit of a draft, which was helping him.
We'll jump on board with Ian here as he runs down into the carousel.
Such a tough section. You got to use all the room on the left and the right. You got to be up against the grass and go fast.
You do, and you get just a little too far off. I'm always amazed that you just drop a tire off in certain areas of this track, and it bites you.
Yeah, the grass sure is. It's like I find that it's scary, most scary, I should say, under braking. A little bit of grass under braking, you have a hard time saving it.
To be the case at Mid-Ohio last week, breaking for the keyhole. The right line is pretty far out there on the left-hand side, but it seemed like there was just one area which I swear I was still on the asphalt, but as soon as I'd hit it, it just spin around. So
yeah, that's kind of where the experience will get you as you do it more. You know the places, and it may not even be there's anything wrong with the track. It just may be the way you're seeing it.
Right.
Oh, looks like a little contact there with a lap car. Well, they're sure close now.
Looks like Dave Fitzgerald's got into the pit while we've been watching this race. Must have gone in for a splash. He was.
I hope he didn't forget to fill it up.
Ian taking Clark on the inside of one there. Looks like he's going to make it stick. But Clark is staying tight with him.
Judging by the damage they've had in a mid-full race.
That they have. All right, let's jump back down the grid a little bit. We'll pick it up with Mr. Christian Bergens here in the Cheetos BMW. Let's see if we can get a tighter shot on that car. Go for one of these rear chases. Chester Cheetah there.
I always wondered, do you just like the look of it, or are you just a huge Cheetos fan?
I mean, I'm a pretty big Cheetos fan. I'm hesitant to ever buy a bag because I'll eat the whole thing, but
I'm in the exact same boat. Plus now with the 3 kids, everything's going to be orange.
So it might be one of those things you're going to have to put down until the kids are a little bit older.
Kids have supersonic hearing for, crinkly bags. When they hear it, they come running. They know something's good in there.
Mm-hmm. About 23 and a half minutes into what is a 40-minute race session here at Summit Point for the Jefferson Grand Prix, the VRG Virtual Racing League. Currently up on top is Darren Treacle, pole position, leading the race. About a 28-second lead on second place Ian Ditson, so we'll check back in with Darren later. Last time we were here, I believe Darren took this one flag to flag as well. Stefan fighting his way back from a rather unfortunate disconnect earlier, which dropped him way down the grid. Back up to 5th place here.
Yeah, it's impressive to get all that time back in such a short amount of time.
Oh, for sure.
What is that a picture of next to Stefan Bappa's name?
Unfortunately, I don't know, Jim, sorry, Steve, if Jim told you about the cameraman's curse here whenever sometimes I move the camera, everybody has a shunt. So that's actually a picture of Stefan and his father's tow rig.
Okay.
And on there are 2 Saab sports racers. I don't recall.
Oh, I see it now. Okay.
It was the only image I had of Stefan when I did the graphics. I thought it was kind of funny. It's a pretty unique rig whenever you see it in person. Certainly the cars are unique as well.
Yeah, I just couldn't make out what the angle was of what I was looking at. I was baffled. But yeah, no, I totally see it now. I see 2 cars there.
Clark's still pretty close here to Ian, so Ian is not gapping him, I think, as quickly as he would like.
Yeah, this is a great race. I don't think he's gonna be able to get away from him.
And then
I wonder sometimes when you're up, let's say when he's out front, maybe he's looking in his mirror too much, and now that he's following, he's found a little bit more pace, just relaxing a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Clark going green there. He's quicker than Ian.
Yeah, just one small mistake is all it's going to take.
I don't remember if it was Clark or it was Bob Lang, somebody in the VRL just this season. Whoop, had a bit of a touch there. Some lap traffic. It's going to give Ian a bit of a gap here with Clark. We did have one competitor who upgraded from a 14-inch CRT monitor, old school.
Didn't know you could get one of those anymore.
Yeah, I was surprised myself. Certainly to even get your computer to output to something like that, but hey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But hey, I mean, you're racing, right? I mean, that's what it's
Right.
about.
So they've since upgraded or flat panel, like 24, 27-inch LCD. So I'm sure it was a brand new world, much like Dorothy walking out of the house in Munchkinland with that Technicolor dream outside.
Well, it is a vintage league. Maybe he took it literally. Got some vintage equipment.
Yeah, the spirit of the vintage racing for sure. Darren up front driving away with this one. I think unless a wheel comes off, he's in pretty good shape.
Yeah, he's got to be on autopilot now. Almost a 30-second gap. I think as soon as Dave had his incident, wherever it was, kind of gave him a bunch of breathing room and just been on autopilot since. And what he doesn't want to do is start chasing lap time. I mean, sometimes you start amusing yourself, seeing how fast you can go.
Right.
And, that's when you get mistakes. You're talking about Fitzgerald doing the endurance race. Sometimes I'll find myself doing that in the middle of a, like sometimes you do like 3 tire stints in a row. So you'll be, in the car for close to 2 hours and, get a little gap to yourself and you might entertain yourself a little bit.
Yeah. It's like Darren's being very patient here.
Yeah, I mean, even if he wasn't out front, there's just certain corners here where it's just hard, or, it's too much of a, it'll kill your lap time too much to go side by side through some of these corners just because, with one car, they're so fast. So if he forced the issue and tried to, go side by side, maybe in that last corner, he'd be very slow down that whole straightaway. So it actually may be beneficial to him to wait a second and then use a little bit of drag to go by on the straight.
Jump back here to Clark and Dave. I think Dave's making his way back up here after pitting, perhaps for fuel. We'll have to touch base with him on. So Dave Fitzgerald here up to P3.
Did Christrom have a problem? I don't remember seeing him go off or anything. I mean, I know he nerfed that one car. Because he was right behind Ditson.
That was a heck of a shunt there. Dave just got collected by some off track. Oh, he's going to be upset about that one. Back to the pits there for Dave. Unfortunate. Not sure what happened there. I'm sure he's
so close to the end.
a bit disappointed with that one. But hey, you get a quick tow back to the pits. See if you can get it back out there and finish the race.
Yeah, it's not very far. It looked like that car was crab walking a little bit, so I bet you it had some damage. The wheels weren't all pointed straight. Just unfortunate timing for Dave.
I think he was going to try to move, but particularly where they were at, there's not a whole lot of... You don't want to turn the wheel in that particular area of the track because the rate of speed you're moving.
Yeah. Just the unpredictability of the broken car. You never know if it's going to go left or right. And, it's hard to predict when you're gaining on that car.
Certainly when you're off on the grass, it's I found the grass behaves very oddly in iRacing. It never slows you down as much as you would expect it to, and then once you get on it,
Yeah. I actually read something recently that iRacing made the grass a little bit more slippery to deter use. I guess in previous versions, guys were being a little too liberal with the off tracks and gaining speed. So iRacing tried to negate that a little bit by making the grass a little bit slipperier.
I think that makes sense. Having a bit of a burp here in our iRacing feed again. Steve, this is not my night for broadcast.
Let's get them all out tonight, and then we'll have a great one next week.
You know?
We were talking earlier about random damage and things and the like, and I was hoping that's actually something I would hope iRacing would implement is maybe, if you're taking tons of off tracks and just keep putting your tires in the dirt, maybe there should be a little bit of penalty there. A random tire failure would be good.
I think that makes sense. Certainly adds to the realism of it. Let's see. Do I have control over iRacing anymore? Apparently I don't. We may miss the end of this race if I can't be quick about it.
Yeah, so we only have about 7 minutes.
Mm-hmm. That would be the case, wouldn't it? Well, it's probably iRacing's ready for a long 3-day weekend here as we celebrate the 4th of July in the States. All right, let's see how quickly I can do this dance and get out of iRacing and back in. Okay. Of course, it still thinks the sim's running. It's not. Alrighty. From a network standpoint and a computer resource standpoint, everything is gravy on my side.
I think it was poor timing. iRacing did an update today, and sometimes they go over the systems and try to make everything better, but sometimes there's casualties. And I wouldn't doubt if this might be one of them. It'll probably get fixed in a quick patch next time, but we're the lambs, as they say.
Right? Not quick enough. All right, iRacing's coming back up. Make sure the stream picks it up. There we go. Should make it just in time. I feel this is kind of like, one of those last minute late in the race pit stops in some, 24-hour Le Mans. You got to change out a gearbox and not get past.
Maybe the hood popped up and we can't see, and
there you go.
Hopefully they'll get it down in time.
This is kind of reminiscent of Cole Trickle's first race out there in Days of Thunder when he's hit just about everything out on track.
Oh, yeah. Well, he gets it all together and has a great finish. So like I said, I'm hoping we can get them all out and do better next week.
All right. 90%. This last 10% is going to be hard. Everybody out there in YouTube land, appreciate your patience. Thanks for watching, bearing with us as we're dealing with this.
You got a slow car on the right side, clear on the right. Go left, right side, clear on the right.
Hang on there, spotter. All right, buddy. We'll turn that down. We're going to pull up these fancy track cameras for the remainder of this session. Start spotting. And we'll get back into it and pick up with our race leader.
And don't forget me.
And we'll bring Steve back into this. One more time. Okay. Are we back? We're back.
Yep, we're doing good.
All right. Let me turn up my audio again because I had it turned way down before on the stream here. There we go. All right. 36 minutes transpired here in this 30-minute race. Looks like that's Darren Treacle in the pit lane.
What's going on?
Uncertain. Perhaps he ran it out of fuel. Splash and dash here with our race leader, Darren Treacle.
Yeah, he only stopped for an instant, so that's not enough time to take tires. So yeah, it could only have been a little bit of fuel or possibly a quick repair.
Well, brave man is he's looks like he's had a 25-ish second gap on second place Ian Ditson. Was able to get in and out quick enough and is about 9.5 seconds ahead here. So Darren's going to owe his pit crew some beers.
Yeah, that's a gamble this late in the race, unless he just had no choice.
Got Reed Shannonbrook here in 4th place. Taking over Clark Orstrom for 3rd.
So it's been an eventful race. A lot of action, a lot of passing, some incidents, some netcode.
Yeah, it's been a bit all over the place. I think it's good. It's exciting on both sides. Oftentimes, you know, I'm up here in the booth just, you know, having a leisurely, you know, spectating session. I certainly appreciate you joining me here, Steve. This has been a lot of fun, and it's good to have somebody to talk to.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's nice to see it from a different perspective.
If you keep it up, I'll hand off the streaming tools to you, and then both Jim and I can get out there and race.
You're making it look so easy.
Make sure we ask Darren about that quick pit stop there at the end once we get to the post race, assuming he keeps it up there in 1st place. I think Ian's looking to challenge. I just don't know that he's got the time left to make up the almost 10 seconds.
Yeah, he's also carrying a bit of damage, so I don't know if he still has the pace that he had initially.
Yeah, I'd imagine that wing's not really doing much down that long straight. Stefan Vappa here chasing Jim Karamanis.
Yeah, it's a shame. He definitely had good pace today, and definitely should have been racing up front. But gives us some excitement. Passed a lot of cars today, so that's a win for us.
Jump back up here with our race leader so we can see this race transpire here.
Heavy traffic is not where he wants to catch it, but he's got such a cushion, he'll probably wait till the front stretch.
Currently working last lap, white flag is out. Flag here. Whoa, bit of traffic ahead there.
I've seen this movie before.
That I have. Let's stay out there, traffic. So you can hear Darren breathing a sigh of relief there. He comes down, start, finish, takes that checkered flag. So there's your race winner, Darren Treacle, handily taking that one. A 10-second lead over 2nd place finisher Ian Ditson, coming across start, finish now. Reed Shannonbrook's going to take 3rd place here. We'll pick it up with him, watch him complete his last racing lap with us. Apparently Reed cares not for pineapple on pizza. I myself do enjoy a Hawaiian every now and again. Nice race there from Reed. Congratulations to him. There's a bit of extracurriculars there coming off of turn 10. People getting a little excited at the end of this race. We'll see if that catches anybody out here. Looks like that might be John Wood there.
Yeah,
in the wall. I don't think he did either. No, he's 10th place, hasn't finished the race yet. That's unfortunate. Ralph Padgington coming around to take 5th place. Nice drive there, Ralph. Not sure if John's going to get it unstuck there or not. Seems that may not be the case.
Needs to get on the radio and get somebody to give him a push.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I think he might just be stuck there. Which, I'm not sure what iRacing is going to do if he doesn't actually finish cross start finish. We certainly don't get our results until every car is cross start finish.
Well, I guess if he exits the sim, it'll likely be.
Yeah, drop him there.
Yeah.
Scott Nettleship finishing the race the right way, driving it back down to pit lane so he can drive it back on the trailer. That's a sign of a good weekend. We can drive it off and drive it back on.
Yeah, with the damage we've had today, I don't think we had too many that could do that.
So it's a solid point there, Steve. I'll take a peek here.
I don't know how to make the lights do that.
I don't either. I barely know how to make them flash when we're out on track. All right, so we're going to stick our head here into the lobby, see who wants to join us for the post-race. Let's see if we have our final results here. We should have... Pull up our results here. So our race winner here, picking up 25 points, though I do believe the broadcast booth has to adjust our points distribution. Darren Treacle there taking the race win, flag to flag. Ian Ditson finishing in second place. Reed Shanderbrook taking third. Clark Orstrom finishing a very strong fourth place, very racy throughout the entire Jefferson Grand Prix. Ralph Padgington picking up a fifth place there. I'm sure his teammate at ELB Racing, Jim Karamanis, might have something to say about that one. So if you bear with me here for a moment, we're going to cut over to the broadcast booth and see who we want to pull in. So just sit tight for a moment and we'll be right back with you. All right, Steve, I'm going to pull in some folks. All right, we're going to bring second place finisher Ian Ditson here into the interview booth. I think we're also going to grab Darren Treacle here in a bit, and perhaps Dave Fitzgerald once they've had a sip of champagne and climbed down off the podium. Ian, you're joined here in the booth with other Ian, and then we've got Steve Ficaccia here joining me in the broadcast booth, providing some excellent color commentary, seeing as how he saw none of the graphics overlays and basically just watched the race. So hats off to Steve here. Strong race from you there this evening, Ian. Looks like you didn't quite finish perhaps the way where you wanted to, but how did it go for you tonight?
It was fairly frustrating. I mean, that track with these cars, they're just so wide. It's very tough to get around lap traffic and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, like you said, didn't go the way I wanted it to. The BMWs were quick tonight. That's really what I got for you. But yeah, I mean, I think I had one pass that was for position the whole race, and that was on Clark.
I mean, it was an exciting race for us up here, and I know Steve and I, it seemed to be a bit of well, it was an extremely exciting race. There was a number of shunts and so on and so forth. Generally, right through traffic okay, it seems. I
had one little shunt with Kurt, I think. He was having a rough night, I know.
Did you find any major differences in the car handling tonight? I understand an update went out that touched most of the cars. Did you notice a difference?
It was probably about half a second to a second slower, like speed-wise. The tire drop-off was terrible. So by the end of the race, at VIR, I could still drive the car. Here, it was just VIR in Mid-Ohio. The car was still fairly drivable, but this time around, the tires just fell off a cliff by the end of the race. The car just wanted to wiggle off the track. I mean, I was keeping the same, or consistently the same Sector 1 times, but I just lose so much in 2. I was running 1010s.
Is that something you discovered in practice, or did you kind of find that out during the race that the tires were going to go off like that?
Oh, I didn't do any practice prior to this other than Thursday one. Just I haven't had a lot of time for that. But
Well, Thursday being before the update, I thought maybe today you would have, we had the practice session before the race. I thought maybe you would have said, "Hey, something's going on here."
I mean,
never
I
know.
guess I didn't like the tires lasted longer, but when they
Mhm.
dropped off, it was really difficult to drive.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, if you hang on just a moment, Ian, I'm gonna try and bring in a couple of more people here in the interview booth. So let's see if we can definitely maneuver this. Had a bit of a rough one up here in the broadcast booth, so bear with me here. Hey, Jim, this is Ian and Steve and other Ian in the booth. Can you hear us?
Yeah, loud and clear, guys. How you doing?
Excellent. Good. Hang on, I'm gonna try and grab Darren and Dave and bring them in here as well. We'll see if that works.
Who finished third?
Reed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see who we got here.
Thank you.
Hey, Darren, this is Ian up in the booth. You hearing me?
I can hear you, and can you hear me?
I can. Hang on one second. I'm going to grab Dave Fitzgerald while we're moving people around
Okay,
here. Let's
perfect.
hope he's not screaming or singing some heavy metal. Hey, Dave, this is Ian up in the broadcast booth. You copy?
Yeah, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining us up here in the broadcast booth. We got Steve Ficacci, my color commentary partner broadcaster this evening. We've also got Ian Ditson, Jim Karamanis, Darren Treacle, and of course Dave Fitzgerald's in here. Interesting race this evening, gentlemen. Dave, you had an unfortunate incident there late in the race, which kind of knocked you out of contention there, but you were looking pretty good there. And of course, Darren. We had some connectivity issues here when we got back on iRacing. We saw you run into the pits for a splash and dash. A little tense moment there, Darren. Yeah, missed your fuel calculation.
I did. I was like a gallon shy. I was actually trying to save fuel, and for a good part of the race, once Dave kind of dropped back, but it wasn't going to be enough, so I needed to stop in for a quick splash. So.
And you still beat me by 10 seconds.
Yeah, you went in with you had a 25-second lead on Ian, and then you came out. I think that was cut more than in half.
Yeah. It was I will say that it was a challenge, I think, for everybody, for the lappers. I think we had one or maybe one or two new guys, and I don't know if they had I don't know what was going on, but I don't know if he didn't see the lights, didn't see the flashing in his mirror, didn't see the blue flags, didn't hear anybody or what, but it was a little bit of a challenge. I think that was for everybody, not just me.
Yeah, tough night.
I think that's the theme for the evening, as Steve can attest to here, is we had a couple of issues up here in the
Yeah.
all around there. So, Dave, you looked like you were having a solid race there, and again, you had an unfortunate shunt there towards the end. But how'd you find the evening? How'd the car handle in light of the recent updates? Anything notable?
I like it. I like the tires felt good. I run pretty much the baseline, the iRacing baseline setup with a little bit of changes just for me, some brake bias, maybe a little less wing. Nothing drastic, and it held up pretty good. Unfortunately, I was short of myself, maybe a little bit more than a gallon. I ended up with like 4 gallons, and I put in 5. So I think I was probably short about 2 by the time I was said and done, but just wasn't enough. And we're having a good race, clean race. Darren and I got away from the pack a little bit for the first, maybe third of the race, and then I started to wear on me that I wasn't going to make it to the end. And when I pulled in, and I only slipped back 2 places, and I was catching up, but then unfortunately I had someone that had spun and then came back across the track, and just perfect timing right into me. Well, I went right into them, sorry. And then at that point I was just sort of deflated. But it would have been a good race.
Yeah, and Steve and I were sitting up here in the booth. We changed cameras, of course. Apologies for that day with the cameraman's curse, but
just come on, fellas. Steve, I got you this gig. What are you doing to me?
Hey, I'm just spectating. I'm not driving the cameras.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm trying to talk him into it, though, so then Jim and I can both race. I should note that we have our third place finisher, Reed Shannabrook, in here with us as well. Reed, excellent drive this evening. Congratulations on your podium finish. How'd you find it out there this evening?
Oh yeah, it was a fun race. I just want to apologize to Clark again for that rear end into T12 or on lap 12 rather. There's a little slowdown ahead, and I did misjudge my braking point. But otherwise, it's a fun race, and really thanks for having me. I enjoyed racing with you guys.
Yeah, certainly. I know you're new to the VRL. It's good to have you out there and racing. You had some excellent pace, and you and Clark both putting in some pretty quick lap times, and quite racy here with Clark finishing in fourth place. So very nice. I guess we'll then look to Mr. Karamanis here, who was quick in practice. We thought perhaps you might pip the podium there, Jim, but it looks like you fell off there. Didn't have the pace in the race. You have any thoughts on that?
Well, I was having a good scrap at the beginning of the race. First of all, qualifying for me was an abomination. I never got a clean lap. It was totally my fault, but I seemed to meet the slow cars right at the apex of every corner, so that didn't work out for me. But anyways, I did my best to start and have a clean race and try to slowly work my way up, and it was going fine. Reed made a very clean pass on me, and I was chasing him for quite a few laps, and honestly, I just lost it in the carousel. I made a big mistake. As Dave likes to say, I binned it, and I hurt the car and went into the pit. So I had to play catch up the rest of the race. But I actually had a lot of fun moving up to the back of the pack. I want to say it was back to maybe 18th, and I got 9 or 10 positions. So a lot of fun getting to pass that many cars. But it was good fun. The fast guys were fast as usual. Darren put on a show as he always does, and it's fun to be at Summit. Can't wait to be there for real in 5 weeks for the Jefferson 500.
Yeah, Steve and I were having a nice discussion about the correlation to the real world races and us going to the Jefferson 500 in August 6th through the 9th this year, as opposed to its typical May date. So obviously we're all very much looking forward to going racing there in the real world. So hoping for some good weather, and it would be great to be back down there at Summit Point. I guess we'll look to Darren here, and I was telling Steve how the rest of the field's thinking about trying to sneak some additional ballast into the trunk of your car there, and I said we thought you might be out there in the McLaren, since that seems to be a bit of a handicap for most folks out there. But you went with the BMW tonight, and you looked like you enjoyed it mightily.
I did. I went back to Old Faithful. Oh, well, we've had our discussion that McLaren dropped me for the younger Ian Wisbon driver.
Development driver.
The development driver, yes. They're trying to develop their car. But it was good to get back into the BMW. The McLaren is fun. I just couldn't get a grasp on it at Summit Point. I mean, I could run some good times, but man, you're on the edge. So it's just the BMW is a little more comfortable driving on the edge. So that's why I went with that.
Well, next week we're looking at going to New Jersey Motorsports Park for the Airfield Classic, which is much bigger track and a whole lot more space out there. I think we should be expecting some more close racing from Darren, Dave, and Ian here, and looks like Reed's going to also be a contender here. So it's good to see some new liveries up there on the podium. So as we're getting here, approaching the 10:30 hour, and we all want to stop in the pub and have a pint and have a good evening, I'll wrap up here with any closing thoughts we might have from the grid from our competitors this evening.
Darren, you want to start?
It was just good fun as usual. It was good to be back at Summit Point. I wish I could get the fuel calculation right, but maybe at some point I'll do that.
Next season, Darren. Next season.
Next season. That's right.
Yeah.
Next season when we put the ballast in Darren's car.
There you go. Dave, Of course, we'll hope for some clean air for you next race.
Yeah, that would be nice. I'm not complaining whatsoever. It's always a good time here. You guys put on a good event. It's nice to see guys that are just getting into this, and we have to be a bit more patient. But I understand the frustration. While we're on the subject of Summit Point, I was actually there this weekend. I have a garage there, and I was. It's the first time in, since last year, that I'd heard any cars going across. I think there was a NASA weekend out there, and it was just so weird. Even though it hasn't been that long, it just sounded so weird to have cars on track making noise for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, I think it's something that we all miss very much, and looking forward to when we can finally get out there and take in some sun, some fresh air, some 110 leaded in the air.
Yes, the 110. That's what I'm talking about.
And get some good racing in there.
It's a sweet smelling perfume right there, man.
Yeah, if they made a cologne, I'd wear it.
I slap it on every morning.
Oh,
well,
man.
And Reed, congratulations to you on your third place finish. Thanks for joining this evening. We're going to see you next week in New Jersey, Reed?
You might have to download the track. I'll definitely be in for Lime Rock and Watkins Glen. We'll see about the other tracks, but I'll do my best to get in.
Excellent.
Well, you're in luck. The track is a tech track, so it's cheap. It's like $5.
All right. Hopefully you'll all see me there then.
That's
very nice.
Fun race. Difficult to pass there still, though, but yeah, it'll be fun.
And we'll be looking to Mr. Karamanis here to maintain that practice pace and bring it into the race pace. What do you say, Jim?
Well, it depends. Are you jumping back into a car and am I broadcasting? You tell me.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that one out. I'm trying to get my dad into the car here before Watkins Glen, so we'll see. Maybe it'll be me guiding him, and I'll let you know. But all right. Well, we'll get wrapping up here. Everybody, thanks for joining us here in the broadcast booth. I see the lobby's quite full, so it seems the pub has moved to the lobby if you're going to go and have a beverage and catch up with your fellow competitors. So thanks, everybody, again, for joining us here in the broadcast booth. Darren, Ian, Reed, congratulations on your finish. Dave and Jim, better luck next week.
Ian and Steve, thank you. Thank you for the coverage. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Ian and Steve.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was exciting from start to finish.
Definitely. Well, thank you all, gentlemen. I'd like to certainly thank Steve for joining me up here in the booth. We'll be signing off here shortly, but it was a good time sitting here with you, Steve. And if you'll come back, you'll do it again. Happy to have you, and I'll see if I can figure out a way you can actually see the overlay so you know what's going on.
No, it was great. Thanks for letting me be part of it.
Sure thing. All right, gentlemen. Well, I'm going to go do the sign-off on the stream. Everybody have a good evening, and we'll see you next week in New Jersey Motorsports Park for the Airfield Classic.
Good night, guys. Thanks again.
Have a good night. And that'll do it for us here at the VRG Virtual Racing League. This is your broadcaster, Ian Wisbin, signing off for myself and Steve Ficacci. Thanks for joining us up here in the booth broadcasting with me. We had a fun one. It was an interesting one. A couple of technical glitches on our side, but we thank you for sticking with us, even though there was quite a bit of dead air this evening. We'll try and make sure that doesn't happen next week in New Jersey Motorsports Park, July 7th, 2020. Join us next week. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, and we appreciate you joining us this evening. Everybody have a safe and happy 4th of July, and we'll see you next week in New Jersey. Good night, everybody.